Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Amateur Repair Time. Last week, I got in this cool Ansonia Blackbird clock at the flea market, paid $8 for it. And we kind of looked it all over, figured it out. We worked on the case just a little, couple minor things, putting some nails back in it. And then we removed the movement and took it all the way apart. Look at this. This is what's left of the clock. So today's video will be us trying to put this thing back together. If you're wondering why it looks so clean, I have an ultrasonic cleaner I put all of the parts through, and it cleaned it up pretty good. It's not perfect. I know some of you clock guys and girls out there probably say, huh, I could do much better than that, and I'm sure you could, but this was as clean as I could get it with my ultrasonic cleaner. I am not, cleaning things is not my strong suit, so this cleaner is really going to help me be able to work on some of these clocks. But this movement is about 120 years old, maybe even maybe 130 years old, and it's incredible the condition that the pieces came out after they cleaned up in the ultrasonic cleaner. So they're pretty bright and shiny, which, you know, there's two trains of thought on that. Some people think they don't want it to look really nice and new because it's old. But it doesn't really look new. If you look, there's still plenty of wear on it, so I'm cool with it. And I think this will really help me. That ultrasonic cleaner will really help me because cleaning is not my strong suit. And so the plates still have wear on them, and the wheels have stains and things like that on them, so everything's cool. We're not going to replace any of the bushings. There's a couple that probably need it, but I'm just not to that level of competency yet. If I can put this thing back together and get it to run, that will be the next step of me learning how to repair clocks. So that will be enough of an accomplishment for me that I don't need to try to, you know, figure out how to put bushings in right now. I do have a bushing kit and some tools and stuff like that, so I could probably attempt it, but I think we'll save that for another movement. Look at this one up here, the way they pinched it. That's the weirdest thing. It looks like they cut the plate so that they could tighten up the hole somehow. I don't know. Weird. But anyway, we looked at all that on the previous video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out where all this stuff goes, and we'll try to put it all back in its place. I've messed with a couple of them before, disassembled them and put them back together, but I've never had one that I've been able to clean this effectively. So it's so clean, I believe we may actually be able to get it to run. I'm kind of confident that the thing may may run again after we get done messing with it. The front plate has a bunch of bushings in it that someone has done over the years. The back plate, they didn't do it. So they did the front one, but they didn't do the back one. Makes you wonder why they would do that, but maybe it just wears heavier on the front. I don't know. So let me see if I can figure out the general, like what's what. I don't know which one is the, I'm pretty sure this is this side, and this is this side, I believe. The main wheel, the first wheel, whatever they call it. I believe that's right. So I'm going to look back at the video from whenever we took it apart and see if I can get some clues there. And then we'll go from there. We'll head from there. It's, I think on both sides, don't they usually the stuff is pretty similar. So I think you've usually got, oh, one of them's upside down. That's how they did it. So we're going to have kind of mirrors of each one, I believe. or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So I'm going to look at the video and see if I can track down what order the stuff goes in. All right, so the easiest thing to figure out was the hour wheel here. Can only go one way, really. And I got the little clip back on it, and we'll put some oil on that whenever we get ready to put it back together. But you can see just how bright that ultrasonic cleaner is. I got this plate. Look at that. That's incredible. Okay, so we got that piece out of the way. Next. All right, so one of the biggest problems that I've got putting it back together is that the springs have sprung. They're not supposed to be like this. They're supposed to be much smaller and concentric and basically behind here. Now they make little clips you can put on them, so whenever you let the thing down, it constricts it and makes it where it'll only come out so far. But I don't understand those completely, because I don't know how you would remove them after you get the main wheel, or the big wheel, or the first wheel, the great wheel mounted. So I don't completely see how those clamps work. I guess you could just leave them on there, but I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is, they make a mainspring winder that you can do that with, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use zip ties. So I'm going to constrict this down as much as I can. See, I can kind of do it with my hand. And then I'm going to tie a zip tie around here, and around the whole thing. And then I'm going to tighten it up to get it even smaller. And I'm going to get it to where this is down below the wheel, the gear. And once I get it all the way down, it'll be small enough that we can go ahead and mount it. Basically, here how it is right now. We're mounting it right now, basically. So yeah. Also, I need to figure out where this goes. This little hook thing that's under here. But we'll figure all that out. That may even have something to do, I don't know what that is. I'll check it out. Obviously, this is amateur repair time, people. And if you're thinking, oh, you're going to get hurt, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm being very careful. But yeah, this is dangerous. So yeah, so I need to constrict those so that I can get them to where they will hold in place until we get the rest of the train on. Once you get the going train on it, the escape wheel and the pawl, where is it? Here we go. The crutch here will keep these from running back out. So that's our first problem. That's the first thing that we have to mess with. All right, so hopefully you can understand why I did that with the camera turned off, because I wanted to use both hands. So I took the wheels and mounted them back in where they go, and then I put the screws back in the plates, or 3 of them, I guess, to hold them back in place. And then I just carefully, and it's not crazy because these are only 8-day springs, and they're kind of the thin ones. And I just wound them back up until the things got down to where it was, underneath the wheel. Because basically we have to leave room for the other wheels. So I tightened them back up and put these little clamps on them. Zip ties on them, and they are around the ring where it goes on the post. And I believe those are mounted in the right direction. I'm going to go back and look at the video that I did yesterday just to make sure, but I think that's right. So I think we're good there. So now it's just a matter of taking the top plate back off and then setting up everything where it goes. That's the fun part. All right, folks, I'm not sure how great you can see, but I think I've got everything about where it goes. The only one still is I have to put the escape wheel back in as we put the plate on. So the way it works, this is the time side, and this is the strike side. So obviously I'm an amateur, but I've been learning. So the time side has constant pressure on it from the springs. Same with the strike side. So the time side, this is the great wheel, or the first, I think that's called the first wheel. This may be the first wheel, but I think that's the second wheel. So the great wheel, and these are all a kilter because I don't have the top plate on. So this is constantly trying to turn this wheel. It's connected, these outer teeth are connected to a lantern underneath this part. So it's constantly trying to turn that. Right? At the same time, it's directly connected to this shaft. And this shaft has two parts. It has the minute shaft, I guess we'll call that. So this is directly connected to that via that gear. So while this is trying to turn, it's trying to turn the minute hand. Okay? The minute hand is turning this gear, whose only purpose is to then turn this gear. This gear is the hour hand. So when this gear turns 60 positions, this will turn around once or whatever. You get the point. So it's just perfectly geared 60 to 1. So the spring is turning the minute hand. The minute hand is turning this gear. I don't know what that one would be called. This gear is turning the hour hand. And again, this is my layman's understanding because I'm not a clock expert. I'm sure I'm getting some of this wrong. Okay, at the same time that this is doing this, you have a problem where if you just left it like that, the spring would just immediately unwind, the clock hands would go around super fast, and that would be that. And you know, it wouldn't keep time. So it has to have a way to slow the power down so that it doesn't just immediately unwind and twist the hands off the front of the clock. So this same setup is also turning, whenever it turns this, the same setup is turning this gear that we were talking about earlier. This gear is turning this gear, and this gear is turning the escape wheel. All right, so it sits down. Now, again, it's through the front of the plate, so we can't put it on yet, but it sits right there. And so you can see how that wheel turns this wheel. And so it turns it constantly one way or the other. Well, I guess this way, maybe. All right, so it's trying to turn it. So again, if you had all this hooked up, the same thing would happen. Whenever if the clock was wound up, it would just immediately unwind, and this would go spinning really fast, and that would be that. So whenever the front plate is on, that wheel is actually sticking through the front of the plate right here. And underneath that wheel, you have this magical little item, the crutch. So these pallets up here, they call them, I may have it, do I have it backwards? I don't think I do. Maybe I did. I think it goes like that. This is your thing that makes the whole freaking clock work. I can't tell if I've got it backwards. Perhaps it goes like so. So what this does is it gets in the way of the tooth. So this can't turn because it hits this, which is fixed stationary on this pin right here. Like so. So this wheel, you get how this drives this wheel. So this wheel, and you gotta be careful with this because it just barely goes in there. Let me see if I can get it up in there. I'm trying to understand how these work because if you understand it, you know, you can fix it better. If you understand what it's trying to do, you can figure out how to make it, help it do what it's trying to do. All right. We about got it. All right, so this sits like so. So this wheel, the escape wheel, cannot turn because this thing gets caught in the teeth. So the only way for it to clear the teeth is for this end of it to swing the other way. So if it swings the other way, it catches it, and then it swings back, it catches it, it swings back, it catches it, and it lets it go one tooth at a time. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Now, how do you get it to keep time? Well, it has nothing to do with this or any of this. It has to do with this and how quickly this goes back and forth to allow that to move one ratchet, to allow all these gears to move one little thing, right? To allow this main spring to turn this minute wheel or center wheel, I think they call it, one little whatever it is, right? So this has to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which is what they use the pendulum for. So the pendulum, depending on the length of it and slightly the weight of it, I've seen people do experiments where the weight's not super important. The length is much more important. But this is hooked on the pendulum holder, which fits through here. I think it goes like that. Oh, actually it goes right there. Right. So as this goes back and forth, so the pendulum is attached to this, swings this way, swings that way, swings this way, that way, that way, that way, blah, 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 right? And depending on the length of this, it takes a little bit longer or shorter to make that little journey. So if the clock is too fast, you can adjust this little knob on the bottom to make this longer, farther down this rod. And if the clock is too slow, you can adjust this up to make this farther up the rod so that it swings a little faster. So the speed of this swinging pretty much regulates the time. So basically you get it going and then you slow it down or speed it up with the pendulum. So in other words, all of this is hooked up, I believe. Now this side over here is a little bit more tricky because this is the strike side. So it also has a charge that's constantly trying to get out. Oh, and it's interesting that they call that the escapement, the escape wheel, because it's letting the power escape from the, I think it's called the going train that makes the clock side work. So it's all this power would escape immediately if you didn't have that on it. It would just, or even if you had that on it but didn't have the crutch on it, it would just immediately unwind. Maybe I'll show you that here in a minute, if I ever get it back together. So that little wheel and the setup with the crutch and everything and the pallets lets the power escape. And so it's an escape wheel. Right? So on this side, this looks like it touches this too. It does not. This doesn't touch that at all. That little wheel down there only touches this side. This side's slightly different. It's turning this wheel, which is turning this wheel, which is turning this wheel, which is turning this little flag. Or fly, whatever they call it. I may have that one on. No, I don't. I was about to say I may have it on backwards, but I don't. It wouldn't fit. Actually, I think this is in the wrong spot, but... Boop. There we go. So what happens is, when this turns around to a certain point, it hits a little lever on the back there and knocks it up out of the way. That lever, let me see if I've got this right. Yeah, I got it right. The lever pushes this whole thing up like that. When it does, it releases this wheel, which allows the whole thing to start moving, right? So this spins around and lets some of the power out, et cetera, and all of these start turning pretty quickly, actually. And eventually, down underneath, which one is it? One of these, wherever this is. Is it that one? Or this one? I think it's this one. Eventually this goes all the way around and it hits, yeah, right here. I knocked it out of the hole. There's little springs and stuff on all of this. Yeah. So this spins around, and eventually there's a little pinion on the edge there, a little whatever. It hits it, which makes the hammer go back. And then when it slides by it, I can't get it through right now, but yeah, when it slides by it, the spring pulls the hammer back. Boom, and makes it hit the thing, right? Now, the number of gongs is determined by this wheel. So this wheel has little indentations on it. And if you look, there's 1 there, and then there's 2 there, and 3 there, and 4 there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's going to pick this hammer up, and whatever it does, this thing turns, and eventually it turns to the spot where this can fall back down. And again, there's a spring on that one. So when it falls back down, like, bam, so this tries to seat in this wheel. But if it's not in the slot, it won't seat. It'll just stop about halfway down. And we'll keep allowing this to go. And it'll all spin around one more time, and it'll hit it again. Doom! And it'll do it however many times until this can go all the way down in that slot, depending on what hour it is. So if it's on 3, it's going to go doom, 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 and then that time it's going to get caught in here and not be able to get back out, right? Until the next time that this thing's freed. So that's the rough explanation of how the thing works. So once you kind of understand it, it makes it a little easier to put it together. Again, I am not an expert at this. I am very, very amateur. So anybody that really knows their stuff would laugh at about half the stuff I just said. But for those of you that have never taken a clock apart, that's basically how they work. You can get clocks, even the old ones, that do not strike. So all of this stuff is gone, and you just have this time movement, which on this way this is set up, you have 1, 2, 3. But this is actually 2, but it's just sleeve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 gears is plenty enough. Well, I guess you need the escapement too. So 7. 7 gears is plenty enough to make a minute, an hour clock that's very reliable. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other, and then 6 and 7 if you count these. So you wouldn't need this, and you wouldn't need this. So 7 other pieces there that you would not need if you did not need it to strike. So fascinating. I just think they're so cool that somebody invented this and came up with a way to make it even better. And then I like that they made them in America. I mean, I like that they made them anywhere, but the American ones it's just cool to me because I'm American. I just like the idea that there were big factories where they were stamping these things out and building them, and they made millions of them a year, literally millions. So this was just a great period of time in some ways for American manufacturing. I think that's really cool. And I love that you mess with them a little bit and they still work. That's just incredible. When was the last time they built something that works for 140 years? So I'm going to very carefully slide this plate down on there and try to get it to all line up. That's pretty tricky. You basically just have to try to get the bottom first and then just work each thing into where it goes, and hope you get there. All right, so it's kind of hard to show on camera because you got to lift it up and mess with it usually, or I do. And I've only done a couple of these. But basically, I got the bottom ones where they go, and I put the screws in just kind of finger tight to hold that end of the plate. And then you work your way up it, and you kind of squeeze everything into place as you go. It doesn't help that this spring keeps getting caught. Let's get that out of the way. So you just got to get it all, everything in the hole that it goes in, and you can't force anything. You got to be very careful. You don't want to bend anything. It works pretty good if you lay it down flat and do it, but I'm trying to make it where you can see at least some of it. That's that side. This side over here is tricky because of this bar thing. And the escape wheel that I don't want to bend. Please don't bend on me, little escape wheel movement thingy. And you see how this is caught now because I got it in the wrong spot. Whoa, too far. All right, so that kind of goes up like that. So we got one somewhere that's still sticking up too far, so it's that one. And you can imagine that they get more complex than this too. This is actually a really simple one. That one's fine. This one is so close. You can use a little screwdriver and stuff too, but again, I'm trying to hold it up a little bit so everybody can see it. Maybe you can get a little angle of it. We're getting close. We're getting really close. We're getting very, very close. I think we got it. Well, there's still a little something. Oh, there we went. Last one. Let's put this in finger tight. Now, if you watch somebody do this that really knows their stuff, you'll be amazed at how they do it. And they can use little hooks and picks and just get the stuff right in there. Go even quicker. Or actually, easily go much quicker than I can. This is actually, it seems like it would be very frustrating, but it's actually kind of relaxing. It's like a puzzle. It's kind of like doing like a Sudoku, where you got to, only one thing can go there, and you got to figure out, is it this one? No. Does this work? No. Maybe it's this? No. All right, so I think we've got it. So basically, you should be able to put a little pressure on this great wheel here and make the whole movement go. So this is what would happen if there's no crutch. This spring would just constantly be pushing on it, and the escape wheel would just do that. You see the minute hand there. I'm running backwards. I wonder why it'll let me go backwards, but not the other way. There we go. So that's that. Now, so this side, same thing. This should go down in there, but see, it would not be able to then. You can see how it kind of tries to each time. So we gotta hook up our two springs, this one down here and this one up here. this one up here should be easy enough. So why is it trying to run? It's because I was just winding so this is the spring wire. I'm going to put it under this post like they had it, by just kind of hooking it around. And they literally did that with just a little piece of wire. I'm trying not to let that thing run while we mess with this. All right, so it's going to run because when I was pushing it, I was pushing it the wrong way. I was basically winding it up. And if you look, it's turning the correct way. A second ago, when it was having trouble doing that, it's probably because that spring was hanging inside that wheel there. But you see, it's running pretty good now. So that's backwards. And that's forward. All right, so that's all pretty good. So we got that spring on. We got to get this other spring on. I think it might be about time to cut the zip ties loose. I need to figure out where they had that spring wire. I don't remember. They may have had it hooked up here. That moves, though. That would be a good place to hook it. Let me figure out where they had that hooked, and we'll put it back. Another thing that's interesting is it can only move so far because there's this little hook here. It's in that hole. So it's only got a little bit of play. But if the bell's right here, it's going to hit it and then rest away from it. And of course, obviously you can bend it to wherever it needs to be. If you bend it back a little bit, it makes the bell quieter. If you bend it forward a little bit, it makes the bell louder. Crazy. So let me figure out where that goes, and then we'll take these zip ties loose, and then we're ready to oil it and put it back in there. All right, so I cut the little zip ties off. The way they had the spring was they had that little wire wrapping up and just going around the back of the plate there, right there. And that is enough to make it spring back. That's the whole point. And the one on the top, oh, I forgot, I found the fan. I didn't get that in there, but I slipped it in. The one on the top, it wraps around here, and that is enough to make this fall back down. It's not going to do it right now because we don't have enough, we haven't wound this enough. It automatically falling back. That's the spring is making that happen. And eventually it'll get to its place. I don't know if that catches. Yeah, it's caught. So the power of the spring, which basically I'm simulating with my hand here, can't make that jump that. I guess if you do it enough, it can. But it gets caught down in there, and then the only way it can break loose is whenever this turns again and knocks that little bar out of the way. It's just a brilliant design. And you know, the Americans didn't invent clocks, but still, I just like these American-made clocks. Okay, so we need to hang the pendulum spring, I guess this is called, on it. They're just the pendulum, what's it called? Let me hang it on there so I don't break the freaking thing. Let me use both hands. So it hangs at a preset height because of that little piece in the top, right? You could slide it up and everything, but gravity's going to keep it right there. And the only purpose of it is for this pendulum to actually hang on. And it's basically like spring steel, so that it can go back and forth as the pendulum springs. Eventually these break. It's really common to find these broke. And then we need, of course, our crutch. So the crutch is going to go on there like a so, right down on that pin. There we go. And the suspension spring goes inside of the crutch. I guess I should have put it on last. And then this little bar comes across and it sits up on top right there. And its whole point is to just not allow the crutch to pop off. All right, so this is in there, and I've wound it up just a little bit. We should be able to pop it loose and see if it will do its strike like it should. Doesn't landing in the little things. Each time it's hitting, it'll hit that long one and stop. So that's how it's supposed to be. Very cool. Should I test my luck? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Very cool. All right. Now, if we wind up this side, we shouldn't be able to wind it up too much, but we can wind it up a little bit. And it may get our crutch rocking and rolling. So it's letting it go pretty fast because of there's no pendulum on it. All right, so I'm gonna put some oil on all of the pivot points and then we'll mount it back in the case. All right, if you're ready to hear it, I'm ready to get it ticking and talking. Okay, so it's way out of beat. Dun 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 dun. That's way off. It should be very easy. It should go tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It should be going up, down, right? So the way you fix that is you can bend the pendulum hanger. If this is bent, it will cause it. You basically, you can kind of see the issue. The movement's crooked in there. I may be able to just twist the movement to get it more straight. This is hanging pretty true, but the movement itself to me looks like it's canted slightly. I was able to move it a little bit, but that back board is kind of fragile, so you can't do too much. It's going to rip holes in it. It's like pressed wood. It's like cardboard. But it's pretty decent now. I bent the pendulum hanger just a little bit. Still a little off, but if you listen, it's going. Got a really wide swing and it's got a really loud tick, probably because of the way that box is made. So maybe we'll watch it a while. I'm going to set the hands on it, and we'll set it at like straight up, and I'll come back in 15 minutes and see if it looks like it's went 45 degrees. It's a little bit off. but it's fairly close. So what I did was I mounted the minute hand and I put it straight up, and then I took note of what time it was on my phone, and then came back after 15 minutes, and it kind of looked like that 15 minutes had passed. And it's just ticking and talking. Now this thing is loud. This is the loudest one I've got. It could be because of that back board is a little different than they usually are. That whatever that is that's on it. If you look at the top, it's not on the top of it. And it could just be that the Ansonia movements may just be really loud, but that thing is loud. But I like it. So I think the movement is working great. We may need to adjust this. But I've got it cleaned and I've got it oiled and everything's good. So I think we're ready to put the face back on it and put the hands on it properly. I forgot to show the alarm. So the way the alarm works is there is this little piece that you just slide on the hour hand, the hour wheel, I guess you would call it. And it has a little snail on the back, basically. When I turn it, you'll see it a little bit. Okay, see, it's got like a indented spot there. And this thing rides on that. So when it's not on time, when it's not on where it's set, this arm is slightly higher. And there's a cord, a piece of metal hanging down here that lifts that little pallet there to block the tooth. And it's just barely blocking it. And so you wind it up, and this is a little add-on piece, right? You can add this to pretty much any clock. You wind it up, so you could order it with this or without this. Now this thing's loud, folks, so get ready for loud, okay? So what's gonna happen is, as the hour turns, eventually it's gonna get to the spot where that little thing in the back is going to allow that arm to drop a little bit. So it's at about 9 o'clock right now. See the little indentation? And when it does, it's gonna drop that wire a little bit, and that thing is gonna start slapping the hell out of that bell, right? So see the little indentation? The one in the hall is going off right now. So when that falls, you're gonna see the arm fall, and it's gonna go nuts. So it's gonna be very loud. See the little pallet there? Now, as the hand turns, it's going to push, it's going to get past that little drop spot and pull it back up. So now it's in the way again, right? So if you wind it up again, it can't go. Then you can wind it way up and make it louder, and make it last longer. But as soon as it gets back to that, it will drop out again. It didn't have as much that time because I didn't wind it as much. Very cool. So it's just the interesting way of doing it back in the day. What do you think, folks? Could you sleep with that going on all night? I'm waiting for it to strike. I don't know if the minute hand is adjusted right. We'll see if it strikes right at dead up 12 or if it's a minute or two off. You can kind of just grab it and bend it slightly to fix that. Not the hand, but you just hold the the wheel in place and turn the hand, and it moves the shaft slightly on some of them. So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. I think I did pretty good for $8. That's definitely the best thing I've ever bought at that flea market. But I've only been going for a couple months to that particular one. But I'll definitely be going back after this. I also got a nice old radio there too that we'll do a video on eventually. Now on these older ones like this, they strike pretty fast. It doesn't go slow like a grandfather clock does, because the way that fly runs, it just goes nuts. I guess if I film this long enough, you can tell me if it's fast or slow. I'm gonna let it run for several hours and then adjust the pendulum. But I left the pendulum how it was adjusted the last time, I guess, that they had the clock running, unless somebody's messed with it since then. But I love these things. 140 years old. $140 years old, and it's still working if you clean it up a little bit. So we're a little bit off. We're like a minute off. Very cool. All right, folks, leave your comments down below, and we will see you on the next video. Now I got to find a place to put this on the shelf. I hope you enjoyed it.